Good day, students. Welcome to Mathgotserved.com. In this clip, we're going to be taking a look at how to solve quadratic equations by using the completing the squares method. Don't forget, we have some practice problems at the end of this presentation for you to try out in order to demonstrate mastery of the contents of this presentation. All right, let's take a look at the steps that are going to guide our problem solving process. So these are the steps for steps to solve quadratic equations by completing the square. Okay. All right, so when you're solving a quadratic by completing the square, the first step is to place the equation in the format. Place the equation in the x squared plus bx equals c form. Okay, so what you're doing in this form is you're creating an incomplete square on the left side. All right, so with that set up, we can advance to step 2, which is to complete the square on the left side. Complete the square on the left side. So basically, you're going to create a perfect square trinomial. That's what we're referring to when we say square. You're creating a perfect square trinomial on the left side of the equation upon completing the square. And that will enable you to factor it. Okay, so you're going to then go ahead and factor the square on the left side. The complete square we created, we're going to factor it. And then after factorization, we are going to go ahead and solve using the square root property. All right, you solve the equation in general. Solve the equation using the square root property. All right, so that's basically a summary of the steps that we're going to be using to solve quadratic equations by completing the square. Okay. All right, so for question 1, let's say we have the quadratic x squared minus 10x minus 39 equals 0. All right, so for this, let's go ahead and rewrite the problem. Solutions are as follows. So we have this quadratic in standard form. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it in the x squared plus bx equals c form. It's nice that we don't have a coefficient for a. The coefficient for a is 1, which is equivalent to what we have here, so we don't have to divide by anything. So all we just have to do here is move the constant to the right side of the equation. Okay, so we're going to just add 39 to both sides of the equation. And then we're going to have that x squared plus bx equals c format that we want, with the incomplete square on the left side. So we'll do that. We're going to have, let's see what we have. Minus 39 plus 39, that adds up to 0. So we're left with x squared minus 10x, the incomplete square, equals positive 39. All right, so we're done with step number 1. Number 2, we're going to complete the square on the left side. So we're going to add a special number to constant to the left side to make it a perfect square trinomial. So what is that number? Well, that number is what we determine if we evaluate b over 2 square. All right, so when we add b over 2 square to the left side, we'll have a perfect square trinomial. If we want to preserve equality of this equation, what we do to the left, we'll do the same to the right, b over 2 squared. All right, so in this setup, this is a is 1, b is negative 10. So we're going to compute b over 2 squared, okay? So b is negative 10. So b over 2 is going to be negative 10 over 2, which is negative 5. And then b over 2 squared is negative 5 squared, which is 25. So we're going to add that constant to both sides. So we have x squared minus 10x And then we add that 25, so that will make the left side of the equation a perfect square trinomial. Okay, and then that equals to 39 plus 25 on the right side to preserve the equality of the equation. All right, so on the left side, we have a perfect square trinomial, so we're going to factor that using the shortcut for factoring perfect square trinomials. If you have a squared minus 2ab plus b squared, this is a perfect square trinomial. This factors into a minus b squared. All right. So what we do to accomplish that is just basically square root the first and the last term, and then bring down the middle sign and square the resulting quantity. So we're going to have quantity x minus 5 squared is equal to 39 plus 25 is 64. Bam, bam. All right, so we're done factoring the left side. We're going to move on to number 4, which is to solve by using the square root property. Okay, so the inverse of square is square root. So the goal here is to isolate x. So we're going to square root both sides of the equation. And that yields, so if you, whenever you take the square root of a square of a variable, you have the absolute value of that quantity equals the square root of 64 is 8. To break the absolute value bars, we'll introduce plus or minus x minus 5 equals 8. And then we want to move the plus or minus 1, this plus or minus to the left side of the equation. So we divide by plus or minus 1. Both sides of the equation by that. Okay, and then we're in a good place to get x isolated now. So when that plus or minus 1 is divided out, we'll have x minus 5 equals plus or minus 8. Okay, and then just add 5 to both sides of the equation. Add 5, add 5. And then in combined form, the answer is going to be x equals 5 plus or minus 8. So we're going to simplify it by splitting the equation along the plus or minus line. So x is equal to 5 minus 8, or x is equal to 5 plus 8. 5 minus 8 is negative 3, and 5 plus 8 is 13. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the answer to question number 1. Okay. All right, let's take a look at one more example, then we'll give you some practice problems to try out. In this particular one, our solutions are going to be irrational. So for number 2, let's say we have the quadratic equation. The quadratic equation x squared plus 20x plus 35 equals 10. All right, so this one is not in standard form, but we're still going to follow the procedures, the steps that are outlined here to solve this. Okay, the goal is to solve by completing the square. All right, so we have x squared plus 20x plus 35 equals 10. So the first step in solving quadratics by completing the square is to put it in x squared plus bx equals c format. All right, so to accomplish that, we just move the constant to the right side of the equation. So the constant is 35, so move that to the right side of the equation, and that's going to give us the following. We'll have x squared, see, plus 35 minus 35, that adds up to 0. So x squared plus 20x is equal to 10 minus 35, which is negative 25. All right, step 2, we complete the square on the left side because we created this incomplete square. So we have x squared plus 20x So to complete the square, we're going to add a special number, b over 2 squared. That's how you complete the square. Okay, so that is equal to negative 25 plus the same number to preserve equality, b over 2 squared. All right, so let's go ahead and figure out what that b value is. So we know that b is 20. So b over 2 is going to be 20 over 2, which is 10. And then b over 2 squared is going to be 10 squared, which is 100. So that's the number that completes the square. It makes the left side a perfect square trinomial. Okay, so we have x squared plus 20x plus 100 gives you a perfect square trinomial on the left side. And then on the right side, negative 25 plus 100, just to preserve equality. Okay, all right, so on the left side, we have a perfect square trinomial, so we can use the factorization formula. Just read the first and the last and bring down the middle sign. Okay, so the factored state is going to be, for the left side, is going to be x plus 10 quantity square equals negative 25 plus 100 is 75. Now we're going to advance to step 4, which is to solve using the square root property. So we're going to square root both sides, square root, just like we did in number 1, following exactly the same procedures, okay? So we have the absolute value of x plus 10, whenever you take the square root of a square of a variable, equals root 75. Now, to get rid of absolute value bars, replace the absolute value with plus or minus x plus 10 equals, now let's simplify root 75 if possible. So 5 goes in here 25 times, no, actually 15 times. And if 5 goes into 15 3 times. So we have a perfect square here, 5 times 5. So the square root of 5 times 5, or 25, is just 5. And then 3 stays behind as a radicand because it doesn't have the power to break out. Okay, so 5 root 3 is a simplified form of root 75. So we'll replace root 75 with a simplified form, 5 root 3. Okay. And then we are now going to go ahead and get rid of that plus or minus. Okay, so 5 root 3. So to get rid of the plus or minus, we just divide both sides by plus or minus 1. Okay. Or just move the plus or minus over. So you have x plus 10 is equal to plus or minus 5 root 3. And then the last step, you subtract 10 from both sides of the equation. Subtract 10, subtract 10. And that is going to give us our final answer. In combined state, okay, in combined form, our final answer is going to be x, so this adds up to 0. X is equal to negative 10 plus or minus 5 root 3. Okay, if we want to write it separately, our answers will be x is equal to negative 10. Let's do the minus 1 first. Negative 10, x is equal to negative 10 minus 5 root 3. And then the second one is x is equal to negative 10 plus 5 root 3. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, there goes the answers to question number 2. Alrighty, so now it's your turn to do some practice problems to show us that you have mastered this process of solving quadratics by completing the square. Alright, so here are 4 practice problems that we'd like you to try out. So go ahead and pause the video presentation and try them out. When you're done, click on the playback button and we're going to reveal what the correct answers are. Alright, so there goes the answers to your practice problems. Go ahead and check your work. So how well did you do? Let us know what you scored in the comment section below. If you have any questions about these practice problems or what we went over in the presentation, just let us know in the comment section below, and we'll be more than glad to assist you. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this presentation. Don't forget to help support our channel with your comments, likes, and subscriptions, and also sharing this content with your friends if they have any struggles with mathematics. Tons of support resources can be found at mathgotserved.com or the links in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.